Hey guys, you're tuned into Jesus Wore Birks, the podcast. I'm so excited to say that I'm your host, Alexandra Akins, and over this series, we're going to be looking at what faith means, what is spirituality, etc., etc. I think it's really interesting at the moment. There are so many people, like over 60% of young people, saying that they are spiritual and would describe themselves that way but wouldn't label it or assign it to any specific religion. So that's like massively up from what it would have been like in like back when my mom was younger. People didn't want to call themselves spiritual. So we're just going to get into that today, and our question topic is why so many young people identify as spiritual but not religious. So I'm joined by one of my close friends, Alia. So Alia is a long list of things: a barista, a psychology graduate, a skateboarder to be, kind of.
I do it all. I dabble.
Fashion baddie. The last one kind of annoys me because you're always deleting your Instagram, so can't even showcase it. Yeah, waited like 6 months to get your Instagram feed, then delete it.
Yeah.
And then when I went on it, there's a whole load of stories. I sat down ready to have a stalk, and then 20 minutes later they were gone. No posts, loads of stories. Yeah, but thanks for being here. Like obviously I asked you 3 months ago and you said yeah, but I appreciate it. How's your day been? What have you done?
My day being pretty chill. Went Selfridges, got a janky matcha.
Big up.
That's the highlight, honestly.
Shameless plug there.
Yeah.
Not even paid.
That can be a foreshadowing for the future, maybe.
Big up, janky.
Eyebrow raise. I got a ginger and turmeric matcha with oat milk. And then I inhaled it on the way here.
I got a lavender syrup matcha with oat milk.
Oh yeah, she was with me too.
Yeah.
Surprise. And then yeah, we just came here, made some TikToks to be
Check those later.
to be seen soon. Anyways, yeah, that's me. How's your day been?
My day's been pretty good. I woke up, got the coach here, met you, went to Jenki. Someone convinced me to get matcha.
Janky launch. Yes. I didn't even say anything, bro. You did that out of your own free will.
Convinced. So yeah, let's take it back to when we first met.
Mm-hmm.
Was it friendship at first sight, or I don't know how I felt, but let's hear your side of the story.
Bro, I literally saw the pulsating heart eyes. Like I saw their tongue roll out onto the floor. Like, I'm joking. Anyways, no, it was pretty chill. Like, obviously, you knew how I was as a barista. Like, every second I wasn't working, I was stressed because I just knew another customer was going to come through that door. But we made some good conversation, you know, nothing too crazy.
She broke my heart when I found out that she was talking to everybody the way she was talking to me. I used to go in and ask you, how are you? And you'd say, oh, you know, today I'm kind of tired. And I'd go back and I'd be like, oh my gosh, she told me how she actually was. You talk to the next person and be like, oh, I'm really good. How are you? And I'd be like, haha, I know she's tired.
Oh, the good is a mask. You know that.
And then,
the tiredness is what's actually what's up. Like.
And then one day I came in and I said to you, how are you? And you said, oh, I'm kind of drained today. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I sat down and then I heard another customer ask you and you said the same thing. And I was like, damn, I'm not the only person she tells the truth to. I've been scammed. Yeah.
I'm just never going to speak again.
So that was my first heartbreak.
Yeah, part of my future job search is going to be never having to speak to another customer again, just so that we can maintain this, whatever this is going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Let's get into the topic.
Sometimes, yeah. Wait.
Go on. Sorry.
Sometimes when you didn't come in for ages, I would be like, "Oh, where's that girl?" So
that
actually,
girl. You didn't know my name.
Yeah, because actually, confession, I'm actually really bad with names. So sometimes I wait until I get someone's Instagram, or like, you know, because at the cafe we had Polaroids. Sometimes I would wait for people to get a Polaroid, and then I would be watching them write their name so that I remember it. But that wasn't you though. I swear. Mm-hmm. Anyways, yeah.
So, faith backgrounds as we get into this. So, I'll give you the little rundown. I think you know this already, but I'll remind you.
Okay, go on.
I grew up in a Christian household. Yada yada. Had a few things happen, pretty traumatic life events. Went away from it. Went to university. Was kind of like, you know what? Maybe I wanna have this for my own thing. Like, let's see what's up, because I'd always just known that I was Christian because my mom said I was Christian, and you know, my mom said Santa Claus existed, so I believed it. But then I discovered for myself he didn't exist. So I was kind of like, you know what, if I'm gonna say that Jesus doesn't exist and God isn't real, then I need to figure it out for myself and do my own research so that I know that I'm 100% in that. So in my pursuit to disprove it and be like, I'm gonna do whatever I want, I actually found that I did believe in it, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? But yeah, so I would say that Christianity and, you know, finding my own personal faith with Jesus happened at university, massively changed my life. Fast forward a whole load of other things happening, and here we are. So to be clear, I would call myself a Christian as of like right now and in life. So that's my little 10 second story. How about you?
So I was born into a Muslim household. Yeah, my parents were Muslim, siblings Muslim, everyone in the family, as long as the ancestry goes, all Muslim. I think it was a difficult thing to navigate growing up because my primary school, the year group that I was in, it was predominantly white. It was also a Church of England school, which was kind of, why are there Muslims here? Like, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because I was part of a minority in that sense, or like, not even just a minority, but obviously being in a Church of England school, you're kind of just taught all of the hymns, all of the, you know, the whole world's in his hands kind of thing. And the Lord's literally like the Lord's daily prayer, like we're, you know, not rinsing it, but like we're going through it daily. Like I even know it off by heart, but that's not me. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was difficult to navigate in that sense, not even just like spiritually, but also culturally, like in terms of the differences between me and like the people in my year group, or going into secondary school. I think it was going into secondary school was kind of a shift because everyone in my year group like pretty much was ethnic. There was actually, I wouldn't say a lack of, but sorry. Yeah, I would say the amount of ethnic people definitely kind of leveled out with non-ethnic people, and also with that comes like the difference in religions and like spiritual perspectives and things like that. So I think kind of being in an environment where I'm constantly exposed to like people who also share my faith, it kind of reduced that ease a little bit. But obviously you want to fit in with everyone and like here and there, and so being with the people who didn't share my faith, and also again that like share the same culture as me or like cultural perspectives, it was kind of like a, you know, what am I doing here? Like, what does my faith actually mean to me? So going to uni, I think I also shared that experience in a sense of, you know, you tend to discover yourself more because it kind of falls upon your shoulders to understand what your faith really means to you. And I was very blessed to meet a lot of like kind, not just kind, but Muslim girls, or Muslim people in general who kind of not reshaped or like shaped in a negative way, but they shaped their religion as something that they understand, not out of a place of fear, because that's kind of the attitude that I was predominantly taught growing up. But they were kind of taught the perspective of like, ultimately everything comes down to God's love for you. And I think, I don't know, my journey with Islam has kind of been wavering in the sense of, you know, you did a lot of research towards it and tried to disprove it. But I think because it was something that I grew up with, it's something that, like, I can't deny myself at this point. But I think it's an ongoing journey in the sense that there are a lot of things that I resonate with, or a lot of things that connect with me and, like, the kind of principles that I have.
Do you think if you had kids yourself, you would send them to a Church of England school, primary school, or would you?
It was definitely a bit of character building.
Okay.
I don't really know. Like, it's a difficult thing because I wouldn't want to hold my children back from being exposed to different attitudes. Because you get a lot of people now who are raised in like neighborhoods or environments where they only share the values that they have. Like, I'll meet a few like white people who will say, white Christian people who will say, like, you know, or even just agnostic people, they'll be raised in an environment where they entirely identify with what surrounds them, and because of that their views are never challenged, or like the way that they live is never challenged. Whereas me, because I've grown up with this whole thing my entire life, it has been a choice of like, it hasn't been a choice, it's kind of been a challenge of always choosing what identifies with me, or like kind of exploring how this challenges what I believe in, or how I differ from what they believe in, and how, you know, I can't necessarily like alienate myself because of that. You know, I don't deserve to be alienated, like in a sense of I will always find some way that I belong. Or like, even if I don't belong, that's fine. But I'm not going to like force myself into that, because, you know, I think my my faith is something very unique to me. I'll just let them do what they want. I mean, obviously they can't necessarily make the most wisest choices for themselves all the time. But yeah, you know, I think especially only being in an environment where you identify with everything around you and you're never challenged, I think that also opens up the possibility of when you are somewhere where you're challenged, it's gonna like shake your boots a lot, and you're not really gonna know how to navigate that for the first time. So I think because I've grown up with it, I think it's something that I've become accustomed to and like less fearful of. So, you know, I'm down for whatever. Down for whatever.
So according to Oxford Learners' Dictionaries, the definition of spiritual includes being connected with the human spirit rather than the body or physical things, and being connected with religion. It can also refer to being deeply connected to feelings and beliefs, particularly religious ones, or being related to supernatural or intellectual matters. So I looked up the definition of spiritual because I feel like it's one of those things that you always hear and then you're always like, oh yeah, spiritual.
Yeah.
But for me, when I'm thinking about spiritual, I'm thinking about spells and astrology and these kind of zodiac signs, this kind of thing. But it obviously makes sense that if you're spiritual, then that can also be connected to any religion, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was just going to ask you, when you think of the word spiritual, like, what do you think?
I've met a lot of spiritual people lately, really. So I think it would kind of fall under the category of being aware of a higher power, but not necessarily knowing what that entails, or not knowing, but like not really defining it. But yeah, having awareness of a higher power in a sense, and like the fact that there's something bigger than us.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think it means to you?
I think now I'd probably say, I mean, you've explained it really well. Can I just tell your definition? But I think, yeah, it's definitely being aware that something is out there, but yeah, not necessarily defining what that out there is. But I guess that spiritual, from some of the people that I've spoken to, can also be just like going outside and being connected in nature and these kind of things. Like, I think it does mean different things to different people. And I also think that it's, because it's so broad, and if someone says to you, hey, I'm spiritual, and then they explain what that means to them, you can't say, no, you're not spiritual. Whereas I think with religion, sometimes if someone says to you, I'm Christian, and then they tell you that, you know, this is how they live their life and this is what they're doing, even though I don't think you shouldn't, and that's a whole other story, technically, you can turn around and say, well, I don't think you're Christian. That's not true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think part of spirituality that a lot of our generation like, and is the reason why so many of them would define themselves as spiritual without further like subdividing, is that it can be different things to different people and you don't have to define it further. So I think it gives you a bit of freedom to say, I believe in something, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, because you are connecting to something that's a higher power, whatever that looks like for people. I think even myself, like, I can say I'm spiritual, but, you know, there's the extra length of I'm spiritual in the sense of I follow Islam.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say?
I think it does. I think you have to be spiritual, especially in, like, I mean, I know that Abrahamic religions are the ones that I'm most familiar with, but in all of those you have some kind of concept of like Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, etc., or different things. So I think when you're saying that, it's literally like in the title, like you have to be spiritual.
Yeah, because I think to not be spiritual but follow a religion is kind of not weird, but it's just, it doesn't really align with it.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
to follow a religion is to have faith in something that may or may not exist. So to not be spiritual is essentially to say that you're only following logic.
Yeah.
But everyone says, like, when it comes to religion or when it comes to God or a higher power, you have to have that faith, because even if people try and say, you know, God doesn't exist, there's the possibility, like, you're having faith in the possibility that he does, because you can't disprove
That's
it
deep.
and you can't prove it either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, you know what? It is deep, because I don't know where online I saw it, but yeah, I saw someone say to be religious or to follow God is to have a leap of faith in itself.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
There's a really famous quote. I want to say it's C.S. Lewis, but it could also have just been some French guy. I don't
Shout
remember.
out that guy. I don't know.
But he said, like, being an atheist takes just as much faith as it does to believe in something.
Yeah.
And I thought that was,
You know
that was
what?
pretty...
He kind of ate with
Yeah,
that.
he did.
Whoever that was.
Yeah, I was reading something in 2 articles that kind of said the same thing. One was in Theos Think Tank, which I'd never read before, interesting, and one was in The Independent, basically saying that a lot of the spirituality that our generation, I don't want to say Gen Z because that's just so,
Yeah.
but a lot of the spirituality that our generation kind of uses comes from moments of like anxiety or burnout or like extreme emotion in whichever sense, as opposed to being rooted in specific theology of whichever religion. And that kind of resonated with me quite a lot, because my whole story back to like rediscovering faith for myself and having that personal relationship started from literally the worst point of my life. So I think there is something about, you know, another quote drop is one of my favorites.
Go on. We
was
love
that
those.
the walls of hospitals have heard more sincere prayers than chapels.
Mm.
And I just thought,
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
because like in your worst moments, like so many people all of a sudden are like, oh God, and it is normal and
Yeah.
natural. It's like, do you get this?
Bro, literally me after those minor inconvenience. Oh my God.
But like, do you think that a lot of our generation's spirituality, like that connection, does come from like, you know, these high stress, high emotional situations?
Bro, for sure. You know what? Not to flex, but I literally did my dissertation on this.
Oh, come on.
Not
Drop it.
specifically, yeah, but a lot of people do say that they find support or solace in religion during times of hardship. Even I did a little homework before I came here, because I didn't want to incorrectly quote, but there's literally a verse in the Quran that talks about people. This, you know, like the context kind of extends further than just remembrance during hardship, but it says that people remember God during hardship, but when they're experiencing times of ease or comfort, that's when they stray from the path again. I think, yeah, a lot of people find comfort in religion, or I think it's the concept of not experiencing things alone that makes people find support in their faith or spirituality.
So the flip side to that question is, do you think then that for some people religion is like a crutch? So it's not necessarily something they actually believe in, but it's just like, oh, if I'm going through something, like, okay, I have that.
I think, bro, easily, yes. Religion is a crutch for people, but it's a crutch in the sense that it's something that anyone can rely on, you know? I think this goes down to a lot of aspects. Like, I don't know why in my head I'm thinking that we can't mention things that happened outside of the studio, because we were literally talking about detachment, like, before this, before we got here. But
Bring it in.
it's even the element of, like, detachment or kind of this control that people want over their lives in any sense, you know? I think essentially to leave it to God or said higher power is kind of a support system in itself. I think words matter a lot, because obviously people say, you know, you can say religion is a crutch, and I think people perceive it to have negative connotations. But I don't think there should be any shame in saying that, you know, I rely on God to get me through this hardship, because that's what I experience a lot. Like, anytime I'm stressed, I think I've begun to adopt this, you know, belief that, and it's not even something that people shouldn't adopt. Anything that God does for you, or anything that this higher power that you believe in does for you, is ultimately for your own benefit. And so I think that once you enter this mindset of, like, you know, anything you go through is to benefit yourself or to better yourself, there's no way that you can kind of feel weak or like too weak to handle something or like to bear a burden, because, you know, ultimately the higher power that you believe in is kind of getting you through it in a sense. Like, obviously a lot of Muslims say, you know, like with hardship comes ease, or God doesn't burden a soul with more than it can bear. And so I think maybe some people might say it's a crutch, but I think it might, like, you know, we can turn it into a more wholesome thing if people perceive that to be a negative thing. Like, faith can be something that cheers you on. Your religion can be something that cheers you on in any aspect of your life. You know, it can always be that thing that encourages you to, like, not even leave it to God to find a way out, but have this strength yourself to find a way out of something that you're going through. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Like, what would you say? What would you say?
I think that was a great answer. I think religion and like faith can be a crutch, but I think definitely reframing it into that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like in the same way you might say, you know, I rely on my mom for X, Y, Z, that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're like 35 and you know, you don't do anything for yourself.
Yeah.
No shade. But but yeah, I think I saw something with someone saying that you shouldn't, like, you should treat God like your friend, as in when you have bad things happen, obviously, like, you go to your mate, like, I'd call you, but then also when good things happen, I also want you to be one of the first people I call. So it shouldn't just be something where you only call, like, you only want to speak to God when bad things are happening in your life and not when good things happen. So in that way, then it's not like he's not really a crutch. It's more just like having a two-way conversation, because if I just called you every time something bad happened in my life and just offloaded that on you and said, Alia, please help, and then when good things happened you never heard from me, you'd get pretty tired of that friendship really quickly. Like, it would just be really draining. So it's like God wants to hear your good and your bad. Yeah, and I think it makes it better for you just to have that open line as opposed to just, you know, all the bad. But yeah, I think having a crutch isn't a bad thing. Like, we all need one from time to time, and especially, you know, life is hard.
Life is hard. And I think this is another thing as well, like, there are wavering stages in life, you know, people come and go, friendships come and go, relationships come and go, but I think there is that one constant if you're spiritual, or if you believe that there's something out there that is supporting you unconditionally. Like, it can be that support system that's like consistent in a way. I think when people perceive spirituality as something that they only rely on during times of hardship, you know, bro, like, this is the thing, I can't even judge people who do, because I understand wanting to reach out to God if you're experiencing a hardship, or if you feel like there's not that solid support system that you can seek comfort in. I think that's when people perceive it as a negative connotation, because it's kind of, it's kind of like taking something for granted that is very much, you know, possibly helping you, you know? Maybe people who seek comfort in spirituality and then actually find some good in it, that's kind of when they take it for granted, in the sense that, you know, they've had this good thing happen to them and it's just like the universe giving back to them. But what are you giving to the universe, you know? Yeah. I hope no one finds any shade from that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
All right, we're back on the facts and figures. Okay. I think I've only got 2 more.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, so data, and I'm going to list all the data below. I'm not just pulling these figures out of nowhere. Among 18 to 24-year-olds in the UK, belief in God has jumped from 16% in 2021 to nearly 45% by 2025, but attendance at traditional services continues to drop. So that's like a massive jump. Like, that's kind of crazy. But what do you think stops people from, like, our age, because this is like 18 to 24, right, from wanting to go to places of worship like mosques, like temples, like churches, even though they're now more comfortable to say, I believe in God, but I'm not gonna, like, do anything that's organised with that?
Another dissertation drop.
Go on. First class, guys. Give it to us.
I wish. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, like, my dissertation was more on the social aspect or the cultural aspect of like how religion plays a part in people's lives. And I understand how people might not want to attend organized practices. Cultural attitudes, I would say, I think is definitely the cultural attitudes, because this is something that I've struggled with a lot myself. Like, obviously, I was mentioning how, like, not that I do want to hang out with guys. If, you know, if anyone sees this and thinks that I want to hang out with guys, please, like...
Her friendship group is just guys.
Free me. Oh, male-centered. No, I'm joking. Anyways, yeah, it's kind of these things of, like, how your culture plays a part, or, like, how cultural attitudes play a part in your worship. Because one of the reasons why my faith was so weak growing up, or something that, you know, like, I would just have me being Muslim as a title as opposed to wondering what it actually means, is because there were these cultural attitudes that I kind of co-inflated with my actual religious identity, or the religious attitudes themselves. Because, you know, like, social influence, whether we all like it or not, has an impact on us to any kind of degree. And for people to not want to attend, like, organized practices or organized, you know, like, religious spaces, it definitely is kind of the attitudes that people have towards it, or, like, maybe the practices don't align. Because I've had a lot of, like, Christian friends who say, you know, like, I don't attend church because people have this idea that that's the only place that you can connect with God. And oh my God, no, my trail of thought is, like, not trail of thoughting right now.
I think
what was I even gonna say?
Is true that there is a lot of judgment in these spaces, I think.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that myself. And I think it's something that definitely needs to change. Obviously, I'm speaking from the Christianity point of view, but that tongue-in-cheek example I gave before of someone saying, oh, I'm a Christian, and then telling you that they do X, Y, Z, and then you turn around and say, no, I'm not a Christian, you're not a Christian. I just think, who are you to say someone is this or someone isn't that? Like, we all have our own, like, walks with God that no one else knows about.
Yeah.
So if someone's telling you that, you know, like, there's a little story in the Bible where Jesus basically says to somebody, like, don't take the like the stone out, like the pebble out of someone else's eye before you take the stick out of yours. And it's this idea that you're saying to somebody, you're not a good Christian, you're sinning, you're doing X, Y, Z, but at the same time your house is actually burning down, like, you're about to lose your eye. They've got a tiny little like, it's dark, like, they've got a tiny pebble in there, and you're like, oh my gosh, you need to get that out now, like, come on. And meanwhile the whole tree trunk is in your eye. So it's like, stop focusing on other people and start focusing on yourself. And I think it's unfortunate. Obviously, it is a bit of the elephant in the room, and it's probably something that people don't want to hear, but there are a lot of churches still nowadays where you walk in, and just from looking at the way that you're dressed or the way that you talk or the way you behave, people are, like, making you feel unwelcome and getting ideas in their head of whether or not you're actually Christian. And then obviously that makes people then not want to go to church.
That has literally rounded me back to what I was going to say, because that's why I mentioned my dissertation. So it is a lot about how, you know, people have found their own paths to religion. And I think that's one thing for me as well. I think the reason why I'm so open-minded towards what kind of walks people have had towards spirituality or even religion in general, the reason why I can't judge is because I know what it's like, you know, to go through different stages in your faith. Like, I know what it's like to question your own faith, or have, like, wavering stages of I feel close to it or I feel distant from it. I get it. Like, that's why, you know, I think we really can't afford to judge other people from where they're coming from, because ultimately everyone's journey is their own. And if you try and intercept that in any way, I think it can really be the defining factor in whether they want to follow it or not. I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people say that they leave religions, because of the way that the people are. Like, obviously you've mentioned in the Christian community how you're judged a lot. That's the same thing for, like, a lot of Muslim communities as well. Like, not to put Islamic societies on blast, but I've heard a lot of people say that, like, they struggle to feel welcome in an Islamic community because, for example, like, some of the talks, they'll be extremely judgmental towards the way that people are, or, like, they'll kind of have these like stigmatizing attitudes towards people's way of life. And I think that feels like a worldly judgment feels a lot heavier than a judgment from the person, not the person, the figure that you're actually worshipping.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like a lot of people have, or not a lot of people, but in religion in general, there is an unconditional forgiveness in God and an unconditional mercy. And I think people find comfort in that. But when you're surrounded by these, you know, these attitudes of, you know, you're going to go to hell if you do X, Y, Z, or, you know, you're not welcome here because you make us look bad, or, you know, like even just being alienated because you're coming from a different path, or you're living a different way of life, or you're finding your own journey towards faith. When a lot of people experience that, like, I don't, you know, I can't argue with that, you know? Faith should be a lot more than the people around you. But when that is your entire experience, that does shift the way that you look at it a lot. So I understand why people don't want to go to those spaces as much, because there's not a lot of leeway for people to have that space to just be. They kind of have that space just to live up to these expectations, not only that God has in like your ideal way of living, but the expectations of the people around you. Because, you know, I think that's one thing for me as well. Like, whenever I think about going to the mosque, I think, you know, I'm going to be looked at a certain way if, you know, I don't wear XYZ, or because I don't attend a lot, I'm going to feel like I don't belong here. You know, I think it's kind of become this idea that when you go, it's a performance and not just worship. Like, it's more than, it's kind of become worldly in that sense, whereas it's supposed to be a space to connect with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I hear that. If you were given, like, unlimited funds, that's not the end of the question.
Inshallah.
And you could change this about, like, religion generally, and you could make it, like, you're tasked with making it more welcoming, particularly to people of our age, like, let's say up to 30. Where would you start? What would you do?
I think one thing is we need more accessibility to places of worship, not just in terms of like, I mean it in the sense of, you know, having more spaces to worship. And I think, yeah, because for me, like, we don't really have a lot of mosques in Oxford. I think we probably have, like, I can't count off the back of my hand, but I would say we've got like 5 that I know of. The one that's nearest to me, I don't think women are able to go there. Like, it's a men's only mosque. I think it's just because of the space. They didn't say, you know, women, you're not allowed there. You're not as good as us.
No, I get that. Okay.
But I think one thing that I would do is definitely improve the accessibility to it, but also not even just with the funds, bro. Like, we need more people who we identify with in these spaces. And I think that's the only way that we can kind of change that perspective. Because, like, obviously I mentioned the Islamic societies before, but at the same time, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If it becomes a space where people feel ostracized because of the way that they are, there's also the other side of, you know, the leaf where people become closer to it because they have more people that they identify with who are their age, and like they're also taking these steps towards, you know, worshipping more or connecting with their faith more. I think I don't know, I don't think it's just about the funds. Like, I think it's about people, you know, seeing the communal aspect of it as opposed to the hierarchy aspect of it, you know, or the judgment side of it. Like, God is literally the only one who can judge us. So I don't know why we keep wasting time on this, let's judge each other, you know? Like, do what you want. As long as you're not killing anyone, as long as you're not harming anyone, I don't care. Like, come to mosque and let's all pray together, please. You know? I think we just need more attitude shifts. I think we need to all just take a step back and just stop judging everyone. I think we need to focus on ourselves more as opposed to what other people are doing, because the more that we spend worrying about what other people are doing, the less time we have to, you know, strengthen our own faith. Like how is judging other people going to benefit our own faith? That's it, really. That's what I would say. What would you do if you had unlimited funds?
Plane ticket.
Who said that?
I think definitely the attitude shifts one. Yeah, for sure. I feel like accessibility is less of a problem for Christianity, as in generally. I think there are enough churches. Obviously, there are certain areas where there aren't.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
She's not, guys. But no, I think, yeah, so the attitude shifts for certain. I think we just need to raise up people in the church who can just, I don't want to say call people out in that way, but just create an environment that clearly shows that judging other people is not what we're about, and that's not what religion is about, and that's not what, that's not what we do here. I think the representation thing is definitely a thing. Like, I came from a much smaller church growing up where not that many people were on the same path as me in terms of what I wanted to do in the future. And that was quite difficult to kind of see, okay, if I stay in this church, like, where do I go? Obviously, going to uni meant that I switched churches, and I went to a church that had loads of people from loads of different backgrounds, and it does make a difference to be able to see people who look like you and sound like you and have been through similar backgrounds or on their way to similar places. Like, that makes a massive difference, because I am a big fan of the diversity of the church should reflect the diversity of the world. So yeah, I think, yeah. What else would I do? I think meeting people where they're at is also important. Like, there's no point in going on the street and preaching the Bible if you haven't been called to that and you just feel like that's the only way to get people to come to faith. And it's definitely not the only way. And, there are people who do that, and I'm not saying that they should stop if that's what they if that's what they think. Like, if they've been called to do that and that's where they see, this is what I'm meant to be doing, then good for them. And I mean that genuinely.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to do it. Even sometimes it's just going for dinner with someone and having a conversation with them about Jesus, or speaking to them whilst you're doing a sports competition with your friends or in a uni hall. And I think, you just need to look at where people are, because going and just essentially Bible bashing isn't going to work for every single person. And in the Bible, we don't see Jesus just doing that. Like, he meets people where they are. Sometimes he goes and sits with people who are beggars, goes and sits with tax collectors, because we didn't like them back in the day.
Those guys, for real.
And he just, it's like, what do they need? Let me speak to them as a human. Let me see where they're at. Let me find common ground with them, because we all have common ground with someone for some reason. Like, there is something you can find in common. Like, give me 10 minutes with somebody, you'll find something. And then from there, you build a relationship, as opposed to just leading with religion and then building relationship afterwards. Yeah. So I think that goes into the community thing. Like, you need to actually get to know the person, not just see the person as, this is another person that I'm gonna, like, convert.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, that's why, like I mentioned, like, the people that I met at university as well, because I think being in the community that I was, like, it was very performative, in the sense that, a lot of the things that I did or didn't do felt like I could or couldn't do them out of fear. But then, like, going to university and then seeing people who, they're taking all different types of journeys towards religion. Like, some people, they get closer to faith because of Islamic talks, or like maybe the people around them are Muslim and things like that. Like, I think there's something there for everyone. And obviously, when you mention like preachers, honestly, this is the thing that puts it into perspective for me. Like, you don't know like what could have been that shift for someone. Like, maybe some preachers, maybe they do kind of just want to side-eye everyone, tell them that they're gonna go to hell if they don't believe in Christianity. But like, maybe there are some people out there who think, like, there is something spiritual that's calling out to me, and then, maybe they see a preacher and they think, wow, like, this is the turn for me. That could be someone's thing. Or even going to dinner with someone and, speaking about spirituality and what it means to each other, that can be someone's thing, I think, yeah, the community does matter a lot. Like, ultimately, we need each other. Like, people need each other. And I think by kind of feeling like we need everyone to live a certain type of way, we're kind of just isolating each other even more because we're not giving each other space to actually just be. And I think by having that, you know, we have time to ask ourselves, like, you know, what does faith look like to you? Like, how does it play a part in your life? Or, you know, even what kind of religion, what religion aligns with you a lot? Or how has my religion shaped my principles and the way that I am? I think we need to give people a lot more space to feel like they can have these questions comfortably, as opposed to feeling like they need to conform instantly because of the way that they're seeing everyone else live or the attitudes that they're seeing from everyone else. Like, yeah, I think with the safety to, you know, get closer to spirituality yourself and see it from a more loving perspective as opposed to judgmental, I think that gives people the space to, like, grow.
Yeah.
Not just spiritually, but also in themselves. I think a lot of people who are content in their faith, they become more loving because of it, because that's what they see in God. They don't just see the judgment, they see the love that comes from it.
Yeah. And I think judgment in these spaces is an interesting thing, because the fear of judgment definitely held me back from discovering my own personal relationship with Christianity for a long time, because I felt like I couldn't ask questions that were things like, how does God exist? Why did, you know, there's a story in the Bible of this guy being in a whale for 4 days and then he comes out of the whale and he's fine. Like, it sounds wild, right? So imagine trying to understand that as like a 7-year-old, and I'm just supposed to sit there like, okay.
Yeah, sure he was.
And it wasn't a space where I could say, how does that happen? Because science says that's not possible.
Yeah.
And I was a very curious child. I know you won't believe that, because I'm so not now, but like, yeah, other things like Noah's Ark. I was like, so you're telling me that 2 cockroaches went into the ark and also 2 dogs and 2 cats, and the dogs and cats didn't eat the cockroaches? Does that make sense to you? Do you know what I mean? There was a tiger in there and 2 lions, and they didn't fight. So I was like, obviously these were, you know, I wouldn't say silly questions. I still think they have backing.
Any question is an acceptable question, bro. Like, you have to tend to curiosity. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into, like, hatred.
Yeah. So if you're, I think in religion, and, you know, I came back to faith because I was given a space where I could ask questions like, how does the Big Bang exist? We're saying the Big Bang is what created the world, but then you're also telling me it was God in 7 days. So which one was it? And I could ask these kinds of, you know, why did this happen? And this was supposed to happen. And the way I see it, this doesn't make sense. And I could have open conversations with people who weren't looking at me like, you're one of those funky Christians.
What's going on there?
You know, and they weren't like
something's not right.
Calling up the pastor of the church. Like, when you see her next week, like, lock the door. She's asking too many questions. You know what I mean? Like, and I think we need more spaces like this where we allow people to be curious, because otherwise we're just believing essentially for no reason, because we don't have the backing. Like, you're saying on a Sunday, yeah, I believe in Jesus, like, he's my Lord and Savior, and then on a Monday you're like, but this thing in the Bible doesn't make sense. So we need spaces where we can explore that, have open conversations, come to our own, you know, understanding. Because if we actually believe in the Bible, then we believe that questioning is what's going to strengthen our faith and strengthen our ideas. But yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah. We need each other.
We need each other.
Ed.
I'm sorry. Yay. Sauce.
You know, that was, oh my God, funny anecdote. That was this, there's this old guy who comes into the store like once a week. And he came in, I think probably like Thursday or Wednesday. And I spoke to him for the first time because I've noticed him like coming in and talking to a lot of my coworkers. And so I was like, oh, I saw you the other week. Like, you were talking to my coworker about basketball. And I asked him if he was doing anything for Halloween. And he was like, no, I go to church on Sundays. I was like, you know what, King, guys, fair enough. You know, you got your priorities.
Big up.
Pardon?
It's a big up.
Yeah, big up.
So around like 80% of our generation, which is basically like almost all of them, believe in a higher power without necessarily like giving it a name. Obviously we spoke about some reasons why people don't want to like put themselves in to the space of this is the religion that I agree with, etc. But do you think there are more reasons why people's curiosity goes to I'm spiritual and I believe in something, but stops then, and they don't try to then further define what it is they believe in? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while because, like, yeah, obviously I've mentioned how I meet a lot of people who say they're spiritual. I think, like, I don't know how to phrase it without it sounding, like, judgmental, like, rude. But I think one thing that holds a lot of people back from that is, like, selfishness to a degree. This is just one thing that I've, like, thought about because obviously in religion you have to make a lot of sacrifices. Like, that's without a doubt. Like, in Islam, obviously, you know, you have to make sacrifices. There are things you can't consume. There are things you can't do. And I think a lot of people who come across that, they feel that it's kind of like restrictive in a way in comparison to their way of living. And obviously, if you're exploring your faith, like your identity and faith at an older age, you've become accustomed to like having a certain kind of liberty in the way that you live life. And so I think that's one thing that holds a lot of people back. And not even just that, but but I think sometimes, I don't know if it's as predominant. I don't think it's as predominant in our generation, but I think in the older generations, there is kind of like a faith superiority complex, or like...
Explain.
Like competitiveness, in the sense that, you know, people are used to their way of living or their faith. If they see someone that doesn't identify with their faith, like, you know, they'll have this attitude of, you know, they're going to hell anyways. They don't believe in our religion. I think it's kind of that. I think it's kind of created this stigma, or maybe this, you know, presumption people have that if they follow a religion, you know, they're gonna go to hell. If they maybe it's like, I don't know if sunk cost is the right word to use here, because obviously a sunk cost is like, you know, you keep investing in something because you're worried about like wasting your time on it. I think it's kind of the idea that if you follow one religion, maybe you're going to be going to hell if you don't follow another religion. Or if you follow that religion, you're going to go to hell because you didn't follow another religion. I think maybe it's kind of that idea in the sense that, you know, maybe religion's kind of like outdated to them, or not outdated, but like old-fashioned in that sense. Like, they kind of have this liberty to be spiritual and be aware of a higher power without having to make the sacrifices that a lot of people make in religion, or having the fear that, you know, maybe if they have those wavering episodes of, you know, I don't know if I feel very strong in my faith, and then thinking, you know, what if this is the wrong thing completely and I'm going to go to hell because I'm not believing in the right thing? What do you think?
I think that, yeah. I think that, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that going from spirituality to further dissecting that can be a bigger leap than going from, like, say, straight atheism to spirituality. I think the sacrifices thing is definitely something, because a lot of people I know would say things to me like, you know, Christianity is just about rules. Religion is just about rules. It traps you in a box. It's restrictive. It tells you how you can live your life, etc., etc. And I think that's something that's quite interesting, because I wouldn't necessarily say, actually I wouldn't say, now that I've been like actively living as a Christian for the last 2 years now, I think, that I feel like I'm boxed in. Like, I feel more freedom than I had before. But I also think that generally humans want rules, and they want to be told this is what you can do and this is what you can't. There was a study that I saw, I believe it was done somewhere in the Scandinavian countries, one of them. And it was basically this guy who went into a school working with the teachers. They knew he was there. And they basically had they used the same group of students. They were like primary school kids, so like 6 to 8 or something. And they gave them a massive field and said, okay, so this is like playtime, break time, you can go out. And the students were like, oh, where can we go up to? And they were like, as far as you want, like, don't worry about it. And after like half an hour, the students made their own perimeter and they made their own boundary, and then nobody went past that. So they created their own restrictions, even though they had been told that they could go as far as they wanted to go. So they wanted to stay near to the teachers, but even when the teachers moved, they still stayed within this self-created zone, essentially. And then the next day they went back with the same group of students and told them, okay, you only have up until here. And when they did that, then the students came to the teachers and they're like, oh, we want to go over there. Are we allowed? We want to go over there. Are we allowed? So I think there is something about the fact that if we don't have rules, we make our own rules as a society, whether we have religion or faith or not. And then when we do have rules, we want to push the boundaries of the rules.
Yeah.
But I also think that's part of being human. And I think any religion has like a higher power, and they're called that higher power because they're innately better than us as humans because we do things that are wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that, I would say that in my walk as a Christian, it doesn't stop me from saying like, oh, maybe the Bible tells me I shouldn't do this, but I want to do that. And I feel like that's the same in any religion. Like,
literally, because I think that's the thing. I think people, like, because people think that we have all these rules, like, we're not going to break them ever.
Yeah.
Like, this is the whole thing about humans. Like, we're not perfect. Like, we're not born into this religion to follow these rules. Like, we're born as humans and we fall into this religion. And I think it's when that individual journey takes place, that's when you question the rules. And maybe you go outside of them, that's fine. But that's part of God's forgiveness, you know? Like, he understands curiosity in individuals. Like, it's innate in us.
Do you think religion's all about rules?
Hell no. You know, I think this is another thing that people misperceive. Like, maybe it is about rules. But in that sense, maybe it's also about protection. Like, am I right in saying that in Christianity, like, you guys are allowed to drink, but it's not to, like...
Yeah, it's not to...
like, a reckless extent.
Yeah, you should still essentially be, like, in control of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I did that yesterday.
Yeah, literally. And that's what it is. Like, ultimately, people might think that everything is just about rules, but I think it's the idea of there's, like... what am I trying to say? Like, it's for our betterment. Like, it's for what's good for us. Because, you know, even if we know that we can trust ourselves to this extent, we don't know what could happen. We don't know what could go wrong. And so it's kind of a protection in that sense. And yeah, like, I think the thing about this study as well is that, like, when people are forced to feel a way of living, of course they're gonna, like, feel resentful or, like, question that. Yeah. But I think when people have the liberty to explore it themselves, of course, like, they're gonna find how it aligns with them. I think it just entirely interlinks with what we've been saying about how, like, people need the liberty to and the comfort to feel like they can explore things at their own ease, because, you know, maybe those kids would have gone as far as they wanted and just never come back, you know. Yeah. But they had to fuck around and find out for themselves, you know, and then they'll come back and say, hey,
didn't like that.
What happened there? Yeah. That's not going to happen again, you know?
So, like, when I think about the future of faith, I kind of think, where is it going to go with our generation and the things that we kind of want? Obviously, I don't know, when was the Quran written?
Between 610 and 632
bro, you nailed
CE.
that. You nailed that. Okay.
Look at me
so,
go.
The Quran was written a long time ago. The Bible was written a long time ago, like over 2,000 years ago. And I know a lot of people say, you know, it's old-fashioned, like, it doesn't suit nowadays, etc., etc. Very quickly, do you think that religion needs to evolve to suit our generation and to better, like, serve people? And then do you think it should have to?
Bro, this is deep. Oh my god, I wish we had more than 5 minutes, because you know what, like, I could proper go into this, but, like, in the most summarized way.
Yeah, give me 15 seconds.
This goes into, like, the whole AI using our brains less kind of thing, because we're becoming content with just taking information as it is and not thinking about how it applies to us or how we can dissect it further. I think, yes, maybe like religion is old-fashioned in the way that like there are things that don't necessarily apply to different cultures. Not that they don't apply, but it's hard to navigate them in the kind of cultures that we live in now, or like the environments that we live in now. I understand that sense. But to say that religion is old-fashioned in terms of the rules and things like that is because we don't look further into why these rules are here, like how it applies to us, why it's written in our religion, like what comes from it and why it's written in the first place. Like we need to ask ourselves these questions. Without the curiosity for it, of course we're going to think it's absurd.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way that I can put it. Like we need to question why a lot more, you know, and not take things as a personal attack as they come, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah, you go. What do you think?
Very quickly, I think that, yeah, definitely like our mindset needs to change. Like our attitude needs to shift in terms of judgment and all that stuff we've spoken about. And that's definitely something that needs to evolve. I think you'd probably agree. Like, I don't think the Bible needs to be rewritten. I think we need to, you know, look at how it applies to us right now.
Definitely.
Because we can still read Shakespeare and say like, oh, when he says like, throw in this bosom here, he doesn't actually mean that in real life. We're not going to do that. So I think we can apply the same kind of logic to these books and not take them at like as the exact word that it says. That's what we're going to take it as in the 21st century, because some of the things that you're looking at in the Bible are like, you know, this was for the church at that time. Those were the instructions. The church at this time is not the same. Therefore, we don't need that. So I would say religion needs to evolve. I don't think that our like holy books need to change. So,
yes.
Killed it.
By the way, guys, if anyone sees this and gets offended by anything that I've said, I don't mean it in a in a malicious way at all.
Okay.
We always have to be thankful for the journey that we've taken in life. Otherwise, what are we going to learn from it?
Facts. So we've seen today that curiosity and faith don't fit one mold, and they mean different things to different people, as well as spirituality. But what happens when faith and church don't quite feel the same? Da, 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 da. So guess what, guys? We're going to come back with another episode. Next week. We've been renewed. And we're going to be looking at why some people feel hurt or judged in church spaces, whether faith is something deeply personal, communal, or both. So if you ever wondered how or if faith can exist outside the walls of a church, you don't want to miss it. If you want to see my face on the screen again, you don't want to miss it. Thank you to my amazing guest, Alia.
Lovely being here.
Yeah, I love you.
Thank you to my amazing host, Alex.
Stop it. And thank you to you if you've tuned in. Like,
comment,
subscribe, send me a DM. I want to hear your thoughts, ideas, future episodes, all of it. And this has been Jesus Wore Birks, the podcast. Questions without limits, answers without judgment. Thank you for tuning into the conversation, and we will see you next week.
I like that.
Bye. Okay, there we go. Not me saying what's wrong with it.